we have the government policy statement on land transport submission. Lisa's taking us through this one here. This is actually a request that we do provide a delegate approval to a smaller group to provide a submission, and that group, as is proposed, would be the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, the Chair of the Planning, Environment and Parks Committee, the Chair of the Transport Committee, and our two councillors on Auckland Transport, and a member of the Maori Statutory Advisory Board. The reason for this is that the GPS has only just come out. We're going to have a bit of a chat about this now from our advisors here, but we will want to make a submission on it. Transport being probably our biggest spend, and certainly the most important thing to me. So I welcome the author and associates. Please, Elise.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, councillors, by 2 minutes. Yes, I'm here to discuss the government policy statement on land transport 2024, which, as the Mayor has said, is now out for public consultation. The draft GPS sets out the priorities for a 10-year period to 2034, and that's updated every 3 years. It outlines what the government wants to achieve in land transport and how it expects to see funding allocated between the different types of activities. Now, the draft GPS proposes quite a significant increase in the National Land Transport Fund, up from 15.5 billion to 20.8 billion, which is an increase of 5.3 billion or 34%, and we welcome that increase. The GPS has 6 strategic priorities. The first 2, maintaining and operating the system and increasing resilience, quite a big increase in those areas, reflecting the recent weather events, and we certainly welcome that. The others are reducing emissions, safety, sustainable urban and regional development, and an integrated freight system. Now, the submissions are due on the 15th of September, which falls before the next meeting of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee, and that was why we were coming to the governing body for approval for a group to approve the submission, as the Mayor has explained. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Newman has a question about this. This is largely a matter of timing.
Can I ask? It's the dead parrot sketch question. The date for this due is 29 days before the general election. I would have thought that was. Are you able to write to the government or to somebody in Wellington and say, look, do you think it might be useful just to pause on this, because we could end up spending quite a bit of time preparing a submission on a document that will probably be influenced by what will happen 29 days after the due date for the submissions to be lodged?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that's definitely a consideration. Irrespective of what happens with the election, we expect that there will be changes to one degree or another to the GPS before it's finalised, no matter who is in government. As officers, we're obliged to submit on the GPS when it comes through and put an Auckland viewpoint forward and deal with what's in front of us in the here and the now. And the extent to which we devote resources and time to that, we can take guidance from you on that, but I think the crux of what you're getting at is probably more a political question rather than an official one.
Okay, well, look, can I ask you, Your Worship, because the point being that I'm wondering whether, has anybody asked if there ought to be a delay in the date for lodgement of submissions until after the 14th of October? It's not just an amendment to the GPS if there was a change in government. There will not be this GPS. It will be a brand new document. It's already been signalled. I am just unclear as to whether anybody has pointed out the obvious, that the timing of this doesn't make for a particularly useful exercise in preparing a detailed submission on a document that could be withdrawn shortly after the 14th of October with the expectation of a new GPS.
Well, you could look at this from several points of view. From my point of view, that we are where we are. The submission is just before the election, and I intend that we put in a strong submission pointing out that whoever wins the damn thing, we don't want them to be dreaming up unfunded, unreasonable dream projects, and that the submission will be, amongst other things else, that they've got to talk to us before they start doing anything. And so I think it's quite good, and we can publicise our submission as well. So our submission is likely to have more interest before the election than if had it been afterwards. But we are where we are, and either way, I intend putting in a strong submission. And so, but I hear what you're saying. I can't change the election date. Unfortunately, there are other people involved.
Your Worship, I wasn't asking for a change in the date of the election. I was asking for a change in the date for the lodgement of the submission in lieu of the election. And that's what nobody has yet answered the question as to whether we have sought a change to the date for the lodgement of submissions to the GPS, noting that the election is 29 days after the due date.
Well, the answer, you did ask me, and the answer is no to that, but I have three people ahead of you with questions, and I think Megan would like to plunge in here bravely.
I'll plunge and then I'll pull out again. No, my answer was going to be no through the chair, Councillor Newman. We've not asked for a change in date, given your obvious point. Right. Councillor Bartley, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning. I just wanted to ask about, my local boards raise concerns, and I share those concerns about one of the projects, Avondale to Southdown, because the proposed route pretty much rips up Onehunga. So where is the opportunity to have that represented in the council submission, knowing that this is just delegating approval of, who works on the submission? And I note that councillors haven't even had the opportunity to look at the projects. So I don't want to ask them for their support for something that they don't have the information for.
Could we say that we will take note of that and include that for consideration in the submission? So there you are. Could be picked up already.
Yeah. Well,
happy with that?
Well, I mean,
I'm quite happy to have that.
Okay.
We'll note that, and that will be included in an item for discussion in the preparation of the submission by the smaller group which have got the power to do this between now and then, should we go ahead with that. I think it's very good that you raised it, and it's a good example. Anyone else has got any bees in their bonnet about this, just get it through to us, and we'll make sure it's covered. We're not.
Could I just add, Your Worship, just point you councillors to the process that we've set out on the back page of the memo that we sent out a day or two ago. We're proposing the draft submission go to all elected members, and that's kind of standard procedure for submissions. And local boards have the opportunity to put forth their views and have those views attached to the main submission. And again, that's standard practice. So there are other opportunities throughout to make your views known.
Excellent question. Good response. Deputy Mayor Simpson.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, I was going to ask a similar question to Councillor Newman, but I suppose, have we got any indication if there was a change of government, if it would be, when it would be revised? But I suppose you don't know that. So my question, question is it okay, do you think it's appropriate then, or I would like to see if it could be sent to actually all political parties, noting the submission date is so close to the general election. It wouldn't hurt to send to everyone? So then at least everyone knows where we stand.
It's certainly possible, but again, that's not what we normally do. But if you want us to do that, then absolutely we can do that.
Well, I'll direct that question then to your worship, because I think, you know, what everyone's acknowledging here is that the timing of this is very interesting in so much it's so close to the general election. No one has a crystal ball, least of all me. But it would be sensible in the interests of the timing to make sure everyone's got a copy.
It's a public document, our submission, so there is no particular reason why it can't be spread up. The best way is if I put confidential on it. That usually manages to get it spread everywhere very quickly. So, but it is a public document and we're quite happy to follow through that. I have Councillor Ferry and Councillor Hills.
Thank you. Given the time frame, I support the process that's been suggested. And really, one of my questions was about how local boards can have input. So, and Robert's already answered that one, so thank you. I did want to raise the possibility that we could also have a workshop discussion on the draft prior to finalisation. Just noting the point that Councillor Bartley has raised. Looking at the workshop agenda, we're pretty tight. It would be hard to fit in, but I think it would be worth it for something of this magnitude, particularly if we are looking at it being, you know, I support this idea of releasing it publicly and going, this is our submission, you know, acknowledging this is a central government process, but the timing means, you know, all parties, this is where we stand on this. So I'd like to make that suggestion.
Just check with Sandra with an R, and there isn't time, but we are going to warehouse this to everybody, so look out for it, respond and send it back in that way. It's just a bit tight. But we do want your input, Councillors Bartley and Councillors Ferry and Councillor Newman. It's not going to be a document without everybody's input. The whole point of this little next debate is just to come up with a practical way that we can get a good submission in, which will be public, and we will, I'm sure you're quite happy to send around to all political parties, and that's okay. So, Councillor Hills and then Councillor Newman again.
Thank you for this, and yeah, I just wanted to back up kind of what you were saying, that it normally takes about a year to review and redo a GPS. So I think it's good that we have some sort of holding pattern. I think no matter what way the pendulum swings, there'll be probably a month of negotiations. Looks like there's several parties in any type of government being set up, and then you'll have Christmas, and then you'll have whatever else. I just think it's important that we have a line in the sand. We don't waste our time. Waka Kotahi needs to have direction from us on a bunch of things, and I'm sure the officials continue going. As I remember, Simon Bridges put up the last final ATAP, I think, a month before the 2017 election, and that was a holding point until the government changed their views a year later. So I think it would be not good for us not to put forward our ideas, because we don't know exactly when it might change, and I imagine it could take months or definitely into mid next year.
Exactly right, my thoughts as well. Councillor Newman?
I'd expect a revised GPS is being drafted as we speak, or is already ready to go or close to it. But what I was going to say is that, can I understand therefore, either to the officers or through you, Your Worship, if we're receiving proposals which are going to be included, I, for example, want to suggest that the GPS is wrong insofar it doesn't include the full 21.5k Mill Road corridor, the four-laner. So if that's something that I want to have in our submission, is that in, or is that a bid which this group's going to think of and might say, well, that's a good idea, or maybe not? It was something that we had initially supported when we came up with the regional fuel tax model. Government agreed and then walked it back. So, I mean, process here, how confident can I be, or we be, that bids that you and others on this group might not like are going to be included or excluded?
I think that the Mill Road motorway and the Onehunga problems will definitely be canvassed and considered in the submission. Exactly what we come up with it, I don't know yet, but we'll make sure we cover those things. That was the point of the earlier conversation with Councillor Bartley. I'm sure Mr Sayers is going to send something or other in about repairing rural roads as well. So it's an opportunity for you to have a part in this. The proposal is just to have a smaller working group to go through this and actually get the damn thing in. Don't feel left out. I have Mill Road imprinted on the back of my mind. All right, Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, I think there's real merit in us putting a submission in, and it should be sort of almost agnostic to whatever the current GPS or what any other political party's GPS is. It should be about what are we seeking, what do we want, and they're really laid out in real priority order so that all political parties get to hear from us rather than the other bloody way around all the time.
Thank you. That's exactly what I had in mind. It will feature the requirement to have an integrated Auckland transport plan fairly at the top, which is something we've never had in 12 years. So, and it is a document for those coming in. It's almost certain we're going to get a different Minister of Transport, even if it's from the same party. So, at this stage here, I'm proposing this piece, and it's seconded by Councillor Sayers. So I'm going to put this, that we delegate to the body, that group, and we get on and we're going to listen, and we're encouraging everybody to make sure that your Mill Road or Anihanga or Rodney Road or whatever else is in there somehow or other. Okay? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary. Carried. Thank you very much for that.